It's rare to come across games like Valkyrie Elysium. Square Enix managed to pack in some beautiful and interesting ideas in a game that ultimately feels like the most exhausting experience I had in years. As soon as I reached the credits, I had a small tear in my eye. A tear of joy. Because I finally took out the disc and played something else. Hey Valkyrie Elysium, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Valkyrie Elysium is a spin-off of a JRPG series that started in 1999 on the PlayStation 1. But instead of being the next role-playing game in the series, Square Enix decided to make this a character-based action game. To be honest with you, I was a bit sad when they revealed the game. I'm a big fan of the second entry, Valkyrie Profile Cimmeria on the PS2, and I always hoped that this amazing RPG series would continue someday. But hey, I take what I can get, and overall I'm happy that this series is not forgotten or dead, and also I like my character-based action game, like Devil May Cry or Devil May Cry 2. I know, there are more games, but I mostly play DMC. But let's get back to Valkyrie Elysium. The story is based around the gods Odin and Fenrir, and Midgard, a world that is about to be destroyed. Odin tries to save the world with the help of his servant, the Valkyrie, our main protagonist. He basically hangs around in Asgard on his cool chair the whole time and sends the Valkyrie to Midgard to purify lost souls. And also you have to collect the 4 gifts to restore Odin's power so that he can defeat Fenrir. Because she's a wolf and wolves are evil. Yeah, something like that. I feel like the story has been told before many times, and also its presentation comes really short in the beginning. So basically you arrive in Asgard, speak to Odin, he says some boring stuff, you go down to Midgard, come back after completing whatever you are supposed to do, report to Odin and repeat. Of course, there are cutscenes during the missions, but the writing, it's bad. Most of the time at least. Let me give you an example, but be aware, some could count that as a mild spoiler. You meet this one character and pretty soon she hints that something you think you know is wrong. Okay, so far so good, but you meet her several times and each time she says something cryptic about you not knowing the truth about something else. And that feels like it goes on forever. The Valkyrie is asking her to tell her what she means, but she won't tell you. It's her secret. She's so cool for knowing the truth and you, yes, you are not invited in the Club of Truth. Whatever. That's just bad writing and shows that the developers had nothing to tell really. If you hint a plot twist in the beginning of a story, you either do it so vaguely that you can lay out some breadcrumbs until the twist comes in the end and all the puzzle pieces come together and you feel like you know now what every hint you got means. Or you do it like Valkyrie Elysium, but then, I don't know, place a twist in the middle of the game and tell how the characters have to deal with that for the rest of the story. Also, this would be great potential for character development. So yeah, story and writing, not that good. But like I said, this is a character-based action game, so one could argue that the story is not that important. And you know what? I think that's right. As long as the gameplay is awesome, the story doesn't really matter that much, right? Valkyrie Elysium has some cool ideas that it brings to the table. Along your journey of purifying lost souls, you meet a few characters. Most of them are so-called Enheria. They are basically dead, but the Valkyrie is able to give them kind of a second life in Odin's army, so that you can use them in combat. By pressing R1 in one of the action buttons, you summon an Enheria to fight along your side. Also, your weapon will be inflicted with the element of your summoned Enheria. And I like how upgrading your weapons grants you access to new moves and combos. A weapon on level 1 starts with something like a 3-button combo, and with each level the combo is expanded and new moves get added. Like a dive attack or an attack you can only perform while dashing. And the last thing I like are the spells. That's pretty straightforward. You find spellbooks or get them as a reward for completing quests and then equip them. I think getting a new spell as a quest reward is the most motivating thing about Valkyrie Elysium. And that gets me to the thing I said in the beginning of this video. The gameplay is exhausting. At least it was for me. Let me explain. But first, the basics. You have 2 buttons for attacking, square and triangle, that you press in certain orders to perform combos. Just like in Devil May Cry, but the combos are easy on Valkyrie Elysium. You also have spells in Anharia I already told you about, and buttons for dodging and blocking to avoid incoming damage. So what you basically do in combat, you try to stun or stagger the enemy by using the elements like fire, lightning or ice to fill up a meter. You can only fill up that meter if you exploit the elemental weakness of the enemy, which is displayed between the health bar and the elemental bar. That system is totally fine. The problem for me is how it all feels. You expect a character-based action game to have fluid combat, satisfying moments while beating up your enemies, and buttery soft movement. Valkyrie Elysium has none of that, really. As soon as you enter the battle, everything feels stiff. Yes, I said everything. Let me list that. The camera feels stiff. When you lock onto an enemy, the camera strictly stays behind you. So when you are knocked to a wall, you can be sure the camera kisses the wall on the other side. This was frustrating more than once. Maybe it's an option to not lock onto the enemy. Animation feels stiff. I don't mean the animations themselves. They look great. What I mean are the animation options you have. You cannot cancel attack with a block or a dodge, and you cannot swap weapons during a combo. I think that it's just weird that the developers did not implement something like that. And lastly, the flow feels stiff. The overall combat flow never really clicked for me. That's mainly because being successful requires you to exploit the enemy's weaknesses, like I said before. That includes the elements and the weakness against a certain weapon. So ideally you use the correct weapon and element, because otherwise you will have a pretty tough time hacking and slashing your way through the game. All that would be fine, but your options in battle are limited. While you have access to a total of theoretically 8 elements, 4 from the spells and 4 from the Anharia, you only have 2 weapons in combat. That means if you want to deal the most damage possible, you open up your menu and equip another weapon and just try out the weakness the enemy has. That is especially frustrating when you consider that not all your weapons are always upgraded equally. For me, that took out a whole lot of fun of the combat. Sometimes there are moments that can feel great, mostly when you have a group of enemies that coincidentally are weak to the weapons and elements you have equipped in that moment. And I gotta be honest with you, all that would not be that much of a problem for me if another thing wouldn't be so infuriating, and that is combat frequency. I understand that this is a hack and slash kind of game, but oh my god, Square Enix, let me breathe for a second. Almost every time I finished massaging my controller to beat up the bad guys, it only took less than 30 seconds for the next battle to begin. Especially subquests crank up the frequency to a ridiculous level. Valkyrie Elysium throws more battles to you than Eminem can rap words in 1 minute. Trust me, I'm not exaggerating. And that's why this game felt so exhausting to me. I mean, I understand the design choice they made, because designing an interesting world where exploration plays a bigger role is probably more difficult and expensive, but it would have allowed me to breathe and appreciate the combat more. To be fair, you can occasionally explore a few passages on the side and find cool stuff like spellbooks, but overall exploration comes short. Big games that Valkyrie Elysium is trying to stand next to are doing a far better job with that. Take Devil May Cry as an example. After fighting, you always have time to relax a bit and even have some light puzzles or platforming sequences. That's a great way to spice up the gameplay, but sadly, Valkyrie Elysium is missing out on that opportunity. After complaining that much, I have to make something clear. Valkyrie Elysium is not a bad game. There are great moments and ideas that you can enjoy, but the game lacks the finesse and overall variety, because all you do is fight, and the bit of story in between unfortunately is not that engaging. I would recommend Valkyrie Elysium only to absolute hardcore fans of the series, and people who just want to turn their brain off and smack some faces. And that's why I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, but only because this is not what I like in a game. Still, I'm glad this game resurrected the Valkyrie series, and I'm looking forward to what comes next. Thanks for watching my review of Valkyrie Elysium. Have you played the game yet? How do you like it? Tell me in the comments. My next video won't be a review. I only did so many because at the moment there are too many games coming out, so I will be covering a few of them in my next video. Subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss that. Have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.